Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our read-through of Mecha Ace, this time, Evo Run. And so, without much further ado, let's hop right into Episode 2, Into the Lion's Den, Codex Secret Weapon. New Rodrigo City, Vedria Prime, Vedria System. Your lance makes landfall on the surface of Vedria Prime with all the subtlety of rolling thunder on a clear summer day. Your eyes ring with the crash of 65 metric tons of mecha hitting the ground, a cataclysmic racket after spending so long in the soundless vacuum of space. You bring up one mechanized hand to wipe the ablative gel, wipe the re-entry gel from your external senses. Your hands move the controls and wiggle your machine's arms and legs around experimentally, readjusting yourself to the planetary gravity. All around you, you know your lance is doing the same. One after the other, they report their machines functional and ready for battle. With most of the opaque heat gel that protected your craft during re-entry now puddling around your combat armature's feet, you look through the main display and get a clear view of your surroundings. A single look is all you need to know that the Imperials have already done a real number on the city in their short time here. All around you, the debris of war stands mute testament to the virulence of the last few minutes. The streets are choked with flipped and crushed vehicles. One building just ahead of you sports a gaping hole where an Imperial machine clearly walked through it. Another has been reduced to a burnt-out ruin, its concrete walls pockmarked by the watermelon-sized craters of high-caliber autocannon shells. Buildings and cars aren't the only thing wrecked on the ground, either. Splatters of blood mark the last positions of the civilians unfortunate enough to be caught in the destruction. There is little left of a human body after being stepped on by a multi-ton war machine. The Imperials did not linger. They did not have to. A combat armature unit could cause mass destruction simply by moving through a populated area. You can see more columns of smoke and wrecked buildings all around you. A Sadie's face appears on your display, her full lips pulled taut in an expression of barely suppressed fury. "Bastards! Attacking the civilians like this! We should make them suffer!" We shouldn't jump to conclusions. No, she's right. They will pay. Everyone will pay. "Damn straight, Sadie," you reply, your own anger getting a hold of you. "We're going to hunt down those Imperial scum and make them pay for this." The ensign smiles. "That's what I was hoping you'd say, boss." Zaft 3's face pops up on your main display. "Boss, we may have a complication." Your subordinate links her machine's camera with your own. Through Zaft 3's hull sensors, you see a small group of civilians gathered around the contorted form of a child trapped under a block of fallen concrete. You watch 3 move forward and extend the arm of her combat armature. Gingerly, like a child picking up a penny, she lifts up the heavy block, allowing the civilians to pull out the trapped boy. You resist the urge to reprimand Zaft 3 for wasting your time with this when there are more pressing concerns that face you. Zaft 3's expression is nervous as she maneuvers her machine back into formation. The civilians' cheers and cries of gratitude audible from your link to her cockpit. There's probably more civilians in distress out there. What do we do if we come across more? You think about your own options as you bring the rest of your lance into the conversation. Stopping to help every local in distress may make you feel better, but every minute you spend freeing trapped children and injured seniors means that the enemy are another minute closer to achieving their objective. On the other hand, your ultimate job as a soldier is to protect and defend Codex citizens. It could be said that your responsibility to do so supersedes the immediate mission. At that moment, you decide, civilians be damned. We got a job. Heads up, Zaft Lance. Time is of the essence here. That means no detours, no stopping to help. Our one and only mission is to find the enemy and destroy the enemy. Got it? Sadie answers almost immediately. "Got it, boss," her voice enthusiastic. The other members of your lance are more reluctant, but after a moment, they too acknowledge their orders. Yeah, I don't care if you don't like me, as long as you're following my orders. The trail of destruction left by the Imperial Mecha is an obvious one. You lead your lance in a headlong pursuit, your throttle open to maximum and your weapons at the ready. Any structure in your way gets crumbled aside by the barreling weight of your war machines. Ooh, shit, we're just straight up wrecking it. Soon, you have created a swathe behind you of crushed concrete and twisted metal, which almost rivals the path cut by your enemies in sheer destruction. That's a little bit stupid. Why didn't we just follow in their wake? Anyway, it does not take long for you to find your objective. Leaving mangled wreckage and crushed bodies in your wake. Oh. Yeah. You and your lance track the Imperial Mecha to the entrance of a large, subterranean passage, large enough for 3 or 4 combat armatures to enter abreast. Judging by the wreckage of armored vehicles and bodies strewn in front and just beside the entrance, your quarry awaits somewhere within. Alright, Zaft Lance, this looks like the place. Weapons at the ready, you slowly move your Manningham into the darkened passage downwards. Follow my lead. The 6 machines of your lance push forward into the darkness, weapons at the ready, expecting a fight. You don't find one. Instead, you find the passage splitting into a series of tunnels, each stretching into the darkness far beyond the light thrown by your hull-mounted searchlights. This particular underground complex is larger than you had first thought. Just great, Sadie says. What the hell do we do now? You weigh your options. Codex Tactical Doctrine would normally require you to sweep through each and every passage as a unit, proceeding slowly to forestall any attempt at an ambush. Of course, these are not normal circumstances. With time of the essence, it might be better to split up and cover each of the passages individually. Then again, there's always your own experience and intuition to rely on. You could simply try and track the enemy forces using your own skills. No, we're splitting up. I don't care if they're trapped or whatever, we should be fine. Alright, split up, Zaft Lance. We don't have time to do this by the book. I need each of you to pick a passage and sweep it individually. If you run into trouble, call the rest of us in. With only the barest hint of reluctance, your lance splits into individual units and disappears down each of the darkened pathways that proceed deeper into the complex. You pick one of the directions not covered by your lance mates. Weapons at the ready, you proceed as quickly as possible, your eyes peeled for any potential ambush. You know well enough that a lone combat armature is a tempting target for any ambushers. The fear of sudden attack keeps your senses sharp. Hopefully we don't get blindsided again. In the end, it is your paranoia that lets you spot the flickering of searchlights up ahead. You open a comm lines to your lance mates. This is Zaft Lead. Does anyone see a bunch of lights flashing in front of them? A half-second later, one of your subordinates, responds. Zaft 4 here. I've just run into the same thing. A few moments later, a Sadie appears on the comm as well. Zaft 2, I see it. It seems like some of these passages converge on the same chamber. With the presence of the enemy just a few 100 meters in front of you, all but confirmed, you creep forward, trying to make as little sound as possible, in hopes of getting a better view. You blink in amazement as your eyes adjust to the light. Before you is a massive, cylindrical, subterranean vault, perhaps 100 meters tall and 3 times as wide. On the far end of the vault, you can see more mangled bodies and crushed armored vehicles. Among them stand the Imperial combat armatures which you have been pursuing. Thankfully, they seem to have arrived barely minutes before you. They are still slowly fanning out into defensive positions. Their first perimeter sentries have barely started setting up their positions. If your lance were to hit them now, the enemy would still be disorganized enough to give you the advantage. As you quickly run through a tactical assessment of the Imperial machines, something else catches your eye. Behind all the shapes of the enemy lies a supine pile of metal, gleaming white under the harsh lights of the Imperial machines. It is clear that this is what the enemy force is after. You zoom in on your hull camera feed to get a closer look at it. The heap of white metal soon coalesces into the familiar shape of a combat armature, but it is unlike any mecha you have ever seen before. Its lines are smoother and more rounded than the makeshift form of your own Manningham, but it is of a clearly different breed than the Imperial units around it. Your eyes catch on an insignia on the shoulder of the unidentified machine. Your eyes widen as you recognize the decal as the designation marker for a Codex military prototype. It does not take an idiot to put two and two together. The identity of the high-priority objective which Captain Balin told you about is now blatantly clear. You beat a stealthy retreat and return to the shadows, where you can confer with your lancemates without fear of discovery. It's a prototype machine, you tell your lancemates as you feed them the recording from your machine sensors. That's why the Imperials broke in here, to capture that combat armature. Sadie says exactly what everyone else must be thinking. We have to get it back. A stolen prototype in enemy hands could be disastrous, and not only because the Imperials could easily turn its advanced weapons against your allies in orbit or the civilians on the ground. Should the Imperials reverse engineer Codex cutting-edge experimental equipment, they would be that much closer to getting a technological edge which might even win them the war. Sadie is right. You have to get it back. You lay out your options for the benefit of your lancemates. The most obvious option would be a direct frontal assault on the enemy position. Alternatively, you could try and use the twists and turns of the darkened passage to lure your enemies into an ambush set by the rest of the machines in your lance. Lastly, you could try bluffing your enemy into surrendering or retreating by making the enemy think that they were outnumbered or surrounded. Of course, the fact that between you, Ensign Sadie, and Zaft 4, you basically do have the enemy surrounded certainly works in your favor. Boss? Zaft 3 speaks up. There is one more thing we could try. She scratches her head nervously as you gesture for her to continue. Well, our machines have remote-controlled systems to fly us to safety if we get knocked out or something, right? What if you used your command codes to interface with that prototype and remote pilot it out? It'd make for a nice distraction, at least. Zaft 3's idea certainly has merit. Of course, there's the fact that you'd have to efficiently pilot two combat armatures at once to pull it off. Ultimately, you decide to, we're going to remote hijack it. Because if they come at us, we're good enough we can handle them. If they go at it, we're good enough we can kill them while they're at the distraction. Ambush is not our thing. Bluffing is not our thing. I'd make a frontal assault, but I don't want to damage the unit. Oh, hey, we just got an achievement. Hooray, us. Thankfully, now that you know about the Codec prototype, you can simply connect with its command and communication system from your current position. You activate your Manningham network system and probe it for open codec systems. Flipping past the active connection nodes of your lancemates, you find an unfamiliar node, the prototype. You order your machine's tactical computer to connect to the inactive machine's own system. You enter your 16-digit command codes when the prompt comes up, hoping your codes will give you the clearance to access the necessary systems. Luckily, the remote access combat armature's computer accepts your authorization and begins activating. Even better, a quick glance at the experimental model's status screen reveals that the machine's remote sensors and piloting controls are both installed and integrated. In fact, every single primary and secondary system in the entire machine is reading as ready for action. You wonder how close to completion this prototype was before its development was disrupted by the Imperial attack. Sadie's curiosity finally gets the better of her. Any good, boss? Her face lights up when you give her and the rest of your lancemates the news. I don't suppose active remote-controlled weapon system would be too much to hope for, would it? If you use the prototype's weapon as well as its piloting system, then the havoc your diversion would be able to wreak would increase dramatically. Hoping against hope, you take a look. Primary weapon system. Ammunition capacity 2 of 12. Status active. Awaiting remote control. Well, how about that? Feeding the prototype cockpit display into your own and those of your lancemates, you make a quick scan of the Imperial formation from the perspective of the deactivated prototype machine. Taking care not to move any physical components and tip off your enemies, you quickly identify 3 possible targets. The most obvious targets are the enemy mecha at the very edge of the Imperial formation. By taking out the units who would normally engage your own lance first, you would be able to wreak a lot more havoc before the other machines in the Imperial force could reposition to attack you. However, if your attack falters, the enemy would still be in a position to wipe you out. Only slightly less obvious is the chamber itself. One of the support columns keeping the ceiling up has been obviously damaged in the Imperial attack. Should you destroy it entirely, it would likely drop a big chunk of the roof, crushing everything under it, including at least 5 or 6 enemy machines. Of course, you are also right below a city. Collapsing a part of a ceiling might also bring civilian buildings down with it. The cost in civilian lives and property damage could be staggering. Lastly, there is a unit which has singled itself as belonging to the Imperial commander. Unlike most of the other units, it boasts the distinctive lines of an M414 Grognard, a machine assigned to only the best of the Imperial military. Hey boss, the expression Asades expression seems to be that of Asades expression seems to be a combination of apprehension and anticipation. You think you can clear me a path to that command unit? I've never fought a Grognard before. They say those things are better than anything we have. I want to see for myself. What will you target? If Asades wants to take out the enemy commander, we'll clear the perimeter guards. Lance, attack on my order. You carefully calibrate the prototype's targeting computer and set its weapons crosshairs on one of the Imperial machines standing at the edge of the enemy position. With only 2 shots, you will have to make each one count. Hoping that whatever weapon the prototype has been equipped with is powerful enough and accurate enough to do the job, you slave the fire controls to your own machine and squeeze the trigger. The gleaming prototype machine springs to life. With movements as fast as lightning, the mysterious combat armature springs to a firing stance. The prototype weapon flares with an energy, bathing the chamber in pale blue light. A pulsing beam, visible only for a split second, fires from the prototype and hits your target dead center. The enemy machine explodes in a thunderous clap of energy, its errand limbs flung in all directions. The Imperials do not move, shocked by the sudden attack from this unknown quarter. That gives you all the time you need to shift your aim and fire again. Another blast of blue light fills the underground chamber. Another Imperial machine disintegrates in a flash of coherent light. Saft Lance, charge! Your unit springs into action, pouring into the chamber and tearing into the stunned remnants of the perimeter guard. Asades shoots you a vicious smile. Thanks for the help, boss, she shouts as the impetuous young pilot barrels ahead through the gap in the enemy perimeter, heading straight for the Imperial command unit. Don't get yourself killed. With your lancemates engaging the enemy directly, you are free to move the remote-controlled prototype machine to safety, but you barely move it 2 steps before a pair of Imperial pilots finally catches on. Vaulting over the melee with their vernier thrusters, the 2 enemies rush to attack you. You disconnect your machine's controls from the prototype and prepare to defend yourself. By the time you get your Manningham's weapons out, the enemy are just a few hundred meters in front of you, their autocannons at the ready and pointed at your cockpit. Okay, let's fight dirty. Let's be assholes. Who cares? You look around you for something that might help you even the odds. Unfortunately, you don't find anything of use. The enemy machines open fire. Oh shit. Your cockpit rattles and shakes as exploding shells burst across your machine's frontal armor. Suddenly, your lead attacker is stopped in its tracks as a plasma blade shears through its cockpit, cleaving the machine clean in two. Your rescuer turns to engage the other enemy mecha, but Zaft 6 Rainier moves a split second too slowly. The Imperial swings first, his monomolecular blade slicing through armor, ceramic, and flesh as easily as if it was air. Zaft 6 doesn't stand a chance. Oh, shit. Your veteran soldier's instincts return your focus to the battle before you even register the fact of your lancemate's death. Like it or not, your fellow Zaft's sacrifice has left you an opening. Before the enemy can turn to face you again, you spring forward, sinking the blade of your chain knife into the cockpit of the enemy machine. Well, shit. We just lost somebody. Well, that's new. We didn't lose anybody. Well, we didn't lose anybody until the very end. I guess this way we're just kind of thinning them out one at a time. You look around for fresh enemies, only to find the battle nearly over. All throughout the chamber, you see your lancemates finishing off the last remnants of the enemy force. The scars and scorch marks on both fallen machines and chamber walls bears the mute testament to the viciousness of the fighting. You call up your lancemates. Zaft, Lance, casualty check. Thankfully, you've taken no casualties. Except for the loss of Zaft 6. That's an odd way of phrasing things, but whatever. Despite the loss of your lancemate, you content yourself with the knowledge that by killing the Imperial who slew him, Zaft 6 has already been avenged. You have no time to mourn. Your job isn't done yet. You order your lance to secure the perimeter as you turn to the top-secret prototype mecha. Okay, so what we just learned from this is we're not going to fight dirty. We will genuinely kick everybody's ass through and through without having to resort to trickery. Suddenly, you receive a new comm line for the Caliburn, marked High Priority. Captain Balin's face pops up on the display as you open the line. Zaft lead, status report. We followed the enemy force to an underground complex and engaged them. I have a pilot down. Captain Balin seems to have no interest in the casualty counts. Ooh, she's a bitch. The objective is secured. You link the captain to your machine's mecha's hull cameras and point them at the limp form of the white prototype machine. That depends. Is this our objective? The captain shrugs, her scowl even deeper than usual. Apparently, I'm not cleared to know. You get the feeling that she doesn't like being left out in the dark any more than you do. It looks important, though. Does that thing have standard remote command functions? You check the line you used to hijack the prototype machine earlier. Everything still seems to be working as intended. Looks like it, ma'am. Balin gives you a joyless little nod. Good. Set that thing to fly up to the Caliburn for recovery. I want the rest of your lance securing the area and tying up loose ends, and I want you to escort the machine up. Understood? By the time the Caliburn commanding officers finish speaking, you are already preparing your machine for space. Understood, ma'am. And with that, we have a pretty short episode, but, oh well. Exciting, because we got ourselves a killed member. I guess we'll find out coming up here pretty quick if we get those members replaced, or if that's a semi-permanent death thing. Anyway, later.